Hey everybody, welcome to Photo Beast. On today's episode, I wanted to go over 7 main reasons why your images just aren't coming out as sharp as you would like them to. And a lot of times you'll go out on a wildlife shoot and certain times of the day the images will definitely be better than other times. We're all pretty much aware at this point in photography of golden hour and blue hour. We've all heard these terms and we know that that's when the light is at its optimal and its softest and we get usually the best results. Even though the light is a little bit less, it's not harsh and we get these beautiful, subtle, glowing backlit images, or if the subject's illuminated in the front by this soft light, there's no harsh shadows and such. So we know that the blue hour and the golden hour are our friends. Now, last week on Photo Talk, I brought out this big precision rifle, and the reason why I brought it out is I wanted to talk about target acquisition, right? Target acquisition is basically where you're constantly shooting your target, but you never take your eye off the scope. And I wanted to talk about setting up your camera to basically never take your eye off the viewfinder. So while you're rapidly taking pictures of subjects, you can either shoot pictures, videos, go to 24 frames a second, go to 120 frames a second, go to 60 frames a second, and go back to photos, all without taking your eye off the subject. There's tips and tricks to everything, and with that said, I'm always personally trying to become a better photographer. What I did last week was last week. What I'm doing this week is going to be better than what I did last week. And what I'm going to do next week is going to be better than what I'm doing right now. I'm constantly training myself to become better every day. And I hope you are too. And if you're that type of person and you're that type of photographer, then this is definitely the channel for you, because we're always trying to implement better ways or new ideas to just become better. You know, you could sit around and go out every weekend with the same settings and the same this and the same that and come back with the same picture. And if that's what you want to do, I mean, God bless you, that's your right. You know, you have every right to be the type of photographer that you want to be. But if you want to grow and become a better photographer, you know, like the word metamorphosis comes from metamorpho in the Greek, which means to basically to change, to transform, like a butterfly from a caterpillar. And that's what we're always trying to do, is we're trying to transform and become bigger and better photographers, better than we were yesterday. Now, going back to me bringing out that big gun, there's also a second scenario other than target acquisition. And this is more of a hidden thing. It's called the Aureolus effect. The Aureolus effect is when you're shooting targets so far away, we'll say half a mile or even close to a mile. Some guys have even done shots up to 2 miles. If you're shooting that far away and the projectile's going that far, the Earth's rotation actually comes into play. And that's called the Aureolus effect. So you have to take into account, is the Earth rotating towards you or is it rotating with you? Because if it's going with you, your bullet might overcompensate. And if the Earth's rotating towards you, you've got to compensate for that as well, because you might pass the actual the projectile might pass the target. So there are hidden enemies at play. And there was a great general one time that said, and this has been quoted many a times by many great philosophers, the best way to defeat your enemy is to know your enemy. And we have a lot of hidden enemies or little gremlins in photography that will definitely mess us up. And as new photographers, we're so enamored by trying to figure out the settings. You know, there were times when I first got into photography, I hit my diopter, which is that little button on the side, and it put my camera out of focus, and I thought my camera was broken. And I went online and I read I read in a forum where a guy thought he broke his camera and he sent it out to Canon, and they sent the camera back and all they did was just the diopter. You hear stories like that all the time. And a lot of times when something is messed up, it's usually the most simple solution and it's right in front of us and we don't see it, especially us men. That's why we have wives, because a lot of times we're like, honey, where's this, where's that? And it's right in front of us. I wouldn't be able to find anything without my wife. She's like my savior when it comes to finding stuff. But like I was saying, when you're first getting into photography, and my wife still does this, she's just past her first year, she'll knock buttons and settings around and her camera's off. She's like, here, honey, and I'll fix it up for her. But not everybody has somebody to throw the camera off to set the buttons up. You know, it's sweet, and I don't mind doing it at all, but the thing is that it's easy to get caught up with, did I touch this or that, or what does this button, what does that button? And in time we pick up all these things. But some of the hidden things that we have that we need to really look into is, and I just did a video on this a few weeks ago, and I'm going to go over the 7 right now, is one is the Rayleigh effect. Now the Rayleigh effect, or what's called Rayleigh scattering, and I'm going to read these definitions I wrote down here. It describes how the Earth's atmosphere scatters shorter wavelengths, okay, of light, like blue and violet, more than longer wavelengths. This is why the sky appears blue during the day and reddish orange during sunrise and sunset. Understanding this effect can help photographers better capture the nuances of natural light at different times of the day. So basically, when you're looking at the spectrum, red and orange have a lot longer rays, and this will actually help enhance some of our images. So if you don't understand the Rayleigh effect, please check out this video right here, and it will kind of just summarize everything for you, and also you can implement this into your toolbox to become a better photographer. Number 2 is going to be haze and atmospheric particles. Airborne particles such as dust, smoke, and pollution can cause haze and reduce visibility and contrast in your images, especially over long distances. Now, when you're doing photography with telephoto, especially super telephoto, 500, 600 millimeter, 800 millimeter, and some of us have, 1300 millimeters with crop factors or teleconverters. Over here, I have a 500 millimeter f4 with a 2x teleconverter on it, and this thing is amazingly sharp when the conditions are right. There are times when the conditions are just horrendous, and it's just not worth using the teleconverter. And as a matter of fact, even at 500 millimeters, sometimes the images that I'm getting just aren't there. Now, what I can do is, I'll pull up a few images in a minute and we'll look at a few of them from the same day that I shot, from early morning to afternoon to evening, and we'll look at some eagles in flight. And that gets into the other thing, and that is heat haze and mirage effects. Now, heat haze is kind of a nuisance on super hot days, especially when we're going from spring to summer, and on those really hot summer days. As you can see, you ever drove over the highway on the asphalt and seen the haze coming up? That's what happens, and especially when we shoot wildlife, like I shoot a lot of eagles and they're down by the water, or ospreys as they're getting fish. That water can be really cold and the heat can be hot, and it makes a haze come up. So your images look so degraded. You could be up super close, have perfect lighting conditions, have great gear, have the right time of day, but if there's any type of heat haze or any type of mirage effects, it will degrade your image to the point that it's just not usable a lot of times. That's why I try to stress too, a lot of people have beat me up in comments in past videos saying, you can't shoot at 12,800 ISO. Well, you can if the conditions are right. If you have good lighting, and the only reason that you're using high ISO is to get that fast shutter speed. If the lighting is good and you're in the right position and the time of day is right and all the things add up, a 12,800 ISO picture can come out just as good as like ISO 1000, ISO 500. I got some amazing images just here in the last week at ISO 12,800, and you would never be able to tell if I didn't tell you that they were shot at 12.8. With the technology of today's mirrorless cameras, the new sensors, I'm just in awe with the R6 Mark II. With the low light capabilities on that camera, it's just super clean and crisp, and it's definitely one of my favorite new cameras to get out there and play with. Number 4 is kind of like heat haze, and that's humidity and atmospheric moisture. Now, high humidity levels can increase the amount of moisture in the air, which can affect the way that light travels and is scattered. This can impact the clarity and contrast of your images, especially when photographing, once again, over long distances or in humid environments like rainforests, or in my case, coastal areas along the beaches and the coast. So one of the things that I might recommend you do is to download an app. Now, I personally use AccuWeather because they tell me the pollen, they tell me the heat index, they tell me the weather the air quality. So try to also check your air quality before you go out and do any type of serious shooting. If you're just going out for fun to the park or whatever, go have at it. If you get home and your woodpecker pictures are degraded and they look like butt, you know why. It was the weather conditions. It definitely wasn't you or me. It was the weather. We'll blame it on the weather. Anyways, number 6, we had 5 was, sorry. Moving on to number 5 on this wonderful list is atmospheric turbulence. Now this one is air currents and wind. Bet you didn't think about that. Air currents and wind. You ever been on an airplane and how it hits turbulence, or seen it in a movie where an airplane's flying, boom, boom, they hit turbulence? Turbulence is real. So it actually happens in the air. One of the things that eagles do is they will hit thermal current, and they don't always flap their wings. Have you ever seen an eagle just soar through the air? What they've done is they've tapped into the thermal currents, and they're not using their power anymore. They're using the power of that thermal current to glide them along. So atmospheric conditions, like I said, they come into a huge role when it comes into this. But let's talk about atmospheric turbulence. Air currents and wind can create atmospheric turbulence, which can cause objects to appear blurred or distorted in your images, especially, once again, using long focal lengths or slow shutter speeds. This can be a challenge when trying to capture sharp, detailed shots of wildlife in motion. Once again, those long distances, the longer the distance that you're shooting, the harder it is to get clear, crisp, concise shots. And the reason that is, there are so many factors. So if you've got the perfect day, perfect conditions, and the perfect settings on your camera, you're going to nail it. Now the next one, number 6, atmospheric optics and natural phenomenon. Listen to this one. Certain atmospheric conditions can create unique optical effects, such as rainbows, halos, sundogs, and even a rare green flash. Understanding these phenomena can help wildlife photographers anticipate and capture these fleeting moments in their natural environment. Remember I talked about your enemies? Well, this one can be your friend. So when there's certain atmospheric conditions, you want to try to capture those, because sometimes there's some anomalies out there that you would like to get, kind of like the northern lights. That's a beautiful anomaly. We always try to get that. And then lastly, we have post-processing and image editing. While air quality can impact the initial capture of your images, always remember post-processing and image editing techniques can also mitigate or enhance certain effects. I stated earlier, these new cameras, these new sensors, and with the new technologies, whether you're using Topaz, DxO, or even Lightroom for that matter. I'm using Lightroom denoise more and more these days. I paid for the more expensive ones, but the better you get with your photography, the less noise you'll have in your images, even at higher ISOs. And you'll see what I'm talking about as you grow as a photographer. But understand how to adjust your contrasts, your clarity, your dehaze settings. These all can help you optimize your wildlife images for the best possible results. Now, in these 7 steps, remember heat haze, humidity. Did you know that a gust of wind, just a big gust of wind blowing, can actually ruin your image? And that's because sometimes it's blowing haze in, sometimes it's blowing dust particles in. So when it's really windy, on a beautiful day, wind, just gusts of wind, can actually degrade your image and make your image look pretty bad, when in fact they should be really sharp. Just try to keep in mind some of the things that we went over today. I think that if you adhere to the proper setting and keep your eye on the air quality and the weather, I think in the very end it will work itself out and you'll come home with some really good starting points on. And then from there, always try to become a better editor. And one of the things that I found over the years to become a better editor is to take, or just, let me say it this way, don't just edit your best picture. Sometimes take 1 or 2, if you have the time, out of that group of pictures and try to fix up some of the worst images you took that day. And that will help you become a better photographer, or a better editor, should I say, because if you can edit the worst, then you can edit the best. All right, with that said, thank you for joining me today on these 7 little tips and tricks on air quality and how they affect you as a photographer. Please like, share, subscribe, and join the Photo Beast family. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. God bless. See you in the next one.